Welcome back to the Breaking Bob channel. Some breaking news to get into. I was sitting down about to do my Xfinity post-race video, and then Connor Zilisch got out of his car to celebrate at Watkins, Glen, and everything changed. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss a thing. But of course, if you haven't seen it or if you haven't heard, a major development after the Watkins Glen Xfinity race today, if you will, depending on when you're watching it, but just a few minutes ago, Connor Zilisch won his sixth race of the Xfinity season, leading over 55 laps, and it was a scary race. A lot of incidents. We're going to talk about those, but Connor Zilisch wins the race, gets out to celebrate in victory lane, and slips on the window net, getting out on celebrating on the roof. Leg got caught in the car, and he lands, it looks like, on his head, neck, shoulder. It's just a nasty fall. Zilisch motionless as the camera cut away, and CW and Dylan Welch was reporting that Zilisch was speaking to medical officials after the incident. He was also sitting up in the ambulance after getting loaded up on a stretcher. But right now we're waiting on medical developments for Connor Zilisch in the infield care center. But a scary sight for the 19-year-old phenom, of course, which should be a great celebration in victory lane after winning a grueling race day at Watkins Glen. Instead turns to scariness, fear, as fans watching on live TV see the guy celebrate out of his car on victory lane come crashing down to the ground in such a violent fashion, laying there motionless. It's a hard sight to watch. Our thoughts and prayers are to Connor Zilisch and his friends, family, everyone affected in this, and hopefully it's a speedy recovery. As of course, he's supposed to race tomorrow at Watkins Glen in the Cup Series, one of his entries for Trackhouse in that Red Bull 87. Hard to say what his status is for tomorrow right now, but of course we'll develop the channel, or we'll send an update when there's a development on his prognosis, of course. And an update while I'm editing this video, Connor Zilich's dad, Jim, just posted to Facebook, quote, Connor is conscious and back to himself and in the infield care center, off to hospital for further evaluation, but is not in any danger. We'll update more later this evening. So a relatively good update for Connor Zilisch. We'll have more, of course, on the channel as it develops, but at least a good update post-race. Never quite seen anything like that. That's just it's hard to process, really. Just a hard thing to see for sure. And just today at Watkins Glen, a heavy mood, really. It just seems like this weekend, yesterday, the Truck Series, you had a 20-lap, basically hour-long delay for these races. And then today, a 10-lap, 45-minute delay and vicious crashes, a couple of scary sights for a couple of cars. It just really glad to just we're getting out of here in one piece relatively for everyone, and just thought it was going to be fine. And then the checkered flag flew in, more carnage afterwards. Just a scary sight today. I guess we could talk about some of the actual part of the on track today. Connor Zilisch, of course, winning the race, and it looked like it was going to be him and SVG battling, and Zilisch and SVG got actually tangled up there. It sent SVG into a scary crash into the wall there with his back right hitting first. It was Zilisch getting forced out, had to come back in. SVG didn't leave him room. I think it's a racing incident. SVG was frustrated in his interview, but didn't get to see the replay when he was asked about it. And just a scary crash there for SVG, but it was okay. And then the main incident, of course, was with 11 to go that caused this 45-minute delay, where Michael McDowell, a scary crash for the second time in his career at Watkins Glen, this time at the hands of Austin Hill, which we'll talk about in a second. But a very nasty crash that caused Michael McDowell and about a dozen other cars to just have a violent reaction that clogged up the entire straightaway there. And I'm glad to see everyone okay. But multiple cars, Michael McDowell, of course, the first one that comes to mind. You had William Sawalich also hit Michael McDowell's tire, hit right in front of his car. Sawalich, luckily, that tire didn't hit enough spot that could have really compromised him. Didn't do a ton of damage. Then Ryan Ellis got caught up in the bottlenecking afterwards, and Ryan Ellis actually hit a car that was airborne, had the car go into his windshield. Ryan Ellis was okay. Thankfully, these cars are safe, but what a strange day, and just a lot of incidents that could have been really bad, but thankfully the safety of these Xfinity cars is really what I want to stress, and the safety of just racing in general right now. Whether you look at all the series, every week it seems like there's a violent crash, but all these drivers are getting up and walking away for the most part. So I'm glad to see that everyone got out of that in one piece there, especially with that Michael McDowell incident. That was a violent crash, and Watkins Glen just seems like just produces a lot of these wrecks for one way or another. The NBC broadcaster, I guess the True TV broadcast for the Cup qualifying practice, was calling this, a super speedway for road courses. And one way or another, it just seems like Watkins Glen produces these violent crashes, and just hate to see it there. Really, really do. And I won't try and do a soapbox here, but Austin Hill, of course, coming back from his suspension last week where he got in that incident with Eric Almirola at Indianapolis, missed Iowa last week. He pushed Connor Zilisch out of the way for the lead there in stage 3. Zilisch was not happy with it, but the incident, of course, everyone's talking about was where he and Michael McDowell got together that caused that massive, massive incident that I talked about with 11 to go. And for Austin Hill, social media is lighting him up, and rightfully so. I want to say this before we get into it. I don't think there was any ill intent. Austin Hill has a reputation for being an aggressive driver, sometimes being a hothead. The Eric Almirola incident was 100% warranted for a suspension. This one, I think it was just him in a tough position where he's an aggressive driver. That being said, it's being called into on social media that he could have just potentially just given up the spot there. Maybe lived to fight another day instead of sticking his nose in there to a spot where there was going to be no room. But, that's who's to say. But instead, Austin Hill takes out Michael McDowell in a vicious way and multiple cars. And again, it's the track history. He hasn't earned the benefit of the doubt after the last couple of weeks and the last couple of years with his career as well. But for a guy who in March stood up at the drivers' meeting for the Xfinity Series at Martinsville and said, I'm going to lead by example here. We have to run clean races. You have to have more awareness. You're in your 30s and you're not running a Cup Series. You're in the Xfinity Series. This is why. You have the talent. You have the speed. But I mean, it's an incident there that could have really hurt somebody today. And I know that's racing and it's easy to armchair quarterback it here. But for Austin Hill, you have to have awareness that after last week, especially the last couple of weeks, in a moment like that, maybe don't race 110%, maybe race 100%, maybe even 90. I know it sounds crazy to say here, armchair quarterbacking, but awareness has to be there. You have to think about your career at some point as well as not just the next turn, your career. And for Austin Hill, he's putting himself in a position where, that reputation is going to be almost a point to where he can't even come back from it. And you don't want to see that for somebody who's so talented like Austin Hill. The wins he has, his resume, it is great, but and again, I don't think it was with any ill intent today, but you could have really hurt somebody today. And it just seems like the tone today with the Xfinity race at Watkins Glen, especially the way it ended with Connor Zilisch, just very somber. It was a weird day, just a weird day, weird weekend so far. Hopefully the Cup Series tomorrow can right the ship, because it just been a very strange 2 days at Watkins Glen so far for the NASCAR world. But we'll get back into it, of course, tomorrow. Ryan Blaney on the pole. Thoughts and prayers are to Connor Zilisch. We'll have an update when we find out something one way or the other post-race here at the Breaking Bob channel. Make sure to subscribe to the channel, like this video for more NASCAR content, and to stay updated on the Xfinity world and whatever happens with Connor Zilisch tomorrow, and of course, moving forward. I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.